But it's time for the doc, man.
Yes, sir.
All Lines with John Maakaron, publisher, Sports Illustrated's publisher and editor of All Lines and host of the Detroit podcast.
Doc.
What up, though, Doc?
Fellas, you put me in a good mood. That's my favorite photo. That was taken in the Detroit Tigers dugout. One of the first times I got to go down to the dugout, talk to the Tigers manager. It was just a moment of appreciation, knowing the hard work. And you can kind of see a little bit how happy I was sitting on a bench in the Tigers dugout, taking it all in. I was just like,
That's dope.
Man, there's nothing like this.
That's so dope.
There's nothing. You can
looks
see
ecstatic.
it. You can see it on his face. It's beautiful. Do you have that same excitement after seeing the uniforms last night?
Yeah, yesterday was quite the experience, kind of getting me ready for the draft, which is a 5-day grind for NFL reporters, starting with the talk with Brad Holmes about what his early thoughts are about the draft, kind of looking at what his early plans are and things like that. And then we have the opportunity to go to Ford Field to check out the uniform. Well, it was a little bit of a buzzkill knowing that it was released online. But to me, after seeing it in person, it was kind of like the ultimate teaser. We got a chance to see what the uniforms look like on photos, but when you're there live in person, talking to Kirby Joseph and Aleem McNeil, best way to put it, those uniforms are crispy. They're great. They are taking care of business. Look, I know people, some section of the fans wanted bold changes. And look, the best way to describe it is the Detroit Lions took a classic uniform that they had and upgraded it and made it more modern, but also reflecting on and honoring their past. That event was really special to be at, having Dan Campbell out there, seeing the video packages they laid out there. It was top notch. And even though the pictures had already been released, to see the helmet and the complete uniform package was special. And when you guys get a chance to see them out on the field, you're going to appreciate it. I think that the Lions did a good job of honoring their past, but also making it a uniform that people are going to be proud of.
Which of the three are your favorites?
Yeah, to me, I think the top one is the home blue jersey. I was definitely going into it a fan of Honolulu blue and silver. That's the colors of the Detroit Lions. Not so much a fan of the black uniforms because in my memory, it's seared with losing. The curse, the black uniform curse. I don't want to see the Lions in that. Dan Campbell wore it. All you think about is losing. But, there were highlights, obviously, of Calvin Johnson and some positive games that they had wearing that uniform. But to me, when you see what it looks like with the shiny new helmet, oh, my goodness, it's unreal. Look, it's an alternate jersey. So you're not going to see it all that much. But, boy, that Honolulu blue is nice. It's solid. And I think, look, most importantly for the Lions, the fans that went there, they were ready to shell out their $200, and there were a lot of jerseys flying off those shelves. I had a chance to talk to a fan just walking out, and he had a St. Brown jersey. And all the fans that attended that event felt rejuvenated, and they felt like, all right, this is the start of the 24 season. Let's go.
Man, let's go. That's what I was going to ask you about, and so I'm glad you already gave that perspective on the fans. Because we're going to say, hey, what's the feeling around the fans and the media? But even beyond that, Amon-Ra St. Brown, you saw his pictures kind of all over donning the new uniforms, as well as his comments all over social media from the RG3 podcast. And he had some interesting things to say about his connection with Jared Goff, as well as pay that man his money. What'd you think of Amon-Ra St. Brown's comments as related to Jared Goff?
Yeah, no doubt. A wide receiver's best friend is the quarterback. And they have clearly a tight relationship, being that they're from out west. They understand both kind of the idea of maybe being overlooked, not being appreciated enough. And they've had success out on the field. And no doubt about it, Amon-Ra St. Brown knows that his massive contract is largely in part due to the way in which Jared Goff delivered the football and the way in which they worked together, the chemistry that they had. There's no way you don't appreciate the quarterback that's probably going to get you a $100 million contract. So you always return the favor. And look, most guys are going to say, hey, I want my teammates to get paid, because whenever everybody gets paid, everybody's happier and everybody is in line with feeling like they're appreciated. And in the NFL, there really is two ways to get shown appreciation. That's playing time and targets, and that's getting the dollar.
Yep.
So both of them are going to be shown the dollar, and I think that both will say that each one has earned every single penny that's coming their way. And look, guys, let's not discount what Amon-Ra St. Brown brings to this team. Gritty. I think he's one of my favorite interviews. I think that he commands a room. Look, he doesn't even have to be bold to even command anyone's attention. When it's time for us to talk to him, I look forward to it. I try to make sure I'm right in the right spot so Broder doesn't push me aside and take over my spot. So I make sure, because I have to fight for my position so I can hear the man. And
it's just competition in the locker room, you know? They're breeding it in the media, too.
It's stiff competition, and Broder don't fuck around, man. If he wants a spot, he can be everyone Red Wing style. He don't care. Doc will go flying. He don't care. So I got to fight my position. I'm the little ball of hate in there, Pat Verbeek style. So I got to fight for my spot so I can hear the man. So it's the best part of our week. Amon-Ra is truly, look, even if he's having the best really thing you can say is, even if he's not feeling it, maybe he's getting a little bit disappointed with a performance that he had or following a loss, still stand-up guy, will give the honest answers and can handle tough questions in the utmost professional manner. Man, what an asset to the organization. I hope we get a chance to talk to him for a lot more years.
Without a doubt. And I don't know if you saw that full podcast, but there was a short section where he talked about this Netflix show coming out and how he's excited to see just the behind the scenes experience that he and other NFL players, other NFL wide receivers, pass catchers have. Like, there are things in his personal life that he sort of alluded to that were going on. So it's going to be really cool to see the behind the scenes look. But I'm going to pass it to KG, who has another question for you.
Yeah, so looking ahead to the draft, you know, everybody in the world is trying to figure out what's on Brad Holmes' mind, doing the impossible. He had a press conference recently, and a lot of people was trying to decode it. What do you think of the press conference? Do you think he's trading up still after hearing that, trading down, or do you think he's staying put?
Yeah, it's always interesting to try and decode what a general manager is saying. Because, look, in the end, he ain't trying to reveal anything. That's true. So leaving that press conference, I think he did his job. Why? Because everybody could surmise that he's trading up, staying put, or trading down. And that's the job of the general manager, really, is to hold the information close to the vest. And look, here's the best way in which I would describe Brad Holmes. You just go off of history. You look at how they've done it. You know that they're ready. They have their draft boards ready. They know who they have graded as first-round talent. And there's probably going to be a handful of names, 5 or 6 guys right now that they say we feel like can slot in and be Detroit Lions. They know. The scouting department, the front office personnel, Brad Holmes, everybody that works for the Detroit Lions, they know what they're looking for, and they have their list ready. And now you just have to wait and see how the draft plays out, because it's hard to predict from my chair right now, because there are 31 other teams that could maneuver. You don't know who's going to come from the second round and try to maybe maneuver and get. So that's why these mock drafts are fun. They're exercises in kind of getting to know the names. But in the end, you don't know, because there's a variable that we can't control, which is the trades, which teams maybe go outside of what's expected as their needs. So they definitely understand how to maneuver a draft board. And if there's a player that they feel like, hey, this is our guy, Brad Holmes ain't scared to move up. And if it just shakes out where a couple of their guys that they're really convicted on aren't there, Brad Holmes has the conviction, has no doubt about it, no fear. He'll stand up there, and even if all the fans are clamoring, chanting for the Detroit Lions in their new uniforms, if he finds a deal that gives the Lions capital and they feel like they can go down and get a player, then he'll make the deal. So Brad Holmes, really, in the end, we just have to credit him as being a general manager that's comfortable in his seat. He can do the job, and we just get to sit back and enjoy it. So to answer your question, I have no clue what Brad Holmes is going to do. But that's what makes it fun, because the draft is in Detroit. There's the added layer of drama. But at the same token, I think the safe play would probably be just wait for the board to shake out and take a pick at number 29. Just stay put and find your guy. I think that they can do that. And this will be fun, too, to see kind of where his board shook out and what happens at number 29 should they stay.
Hey, Dot, look, it's the last one for me today. We've seen some pretty talented, as it relates to individual players, some pretty talented Detroit Lions teams in the past. But one thing that I'm really starting to like about this squad during this Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes era are how many team leaders they actually have. I'm talking about just head and shoulders. These guys are the types of guys you want to go to battle for. Is this Detroit Lions team one of the most leader-laden Detroit Lions teams you've ever seen? You're talking about Amon-Ra. You're talking about Jared Goff. You're talking about Penei Sewell. You're talking about Aiden Hutchinson. And that list can go on.
Leader-laden and Amon-Ra's leader-hosen.
Yeah. Oh, man, I wonder if those leaders just decided to disregard Cam Sutton from the leadership committee. I'm wondering what happens there.
Here's a leader of cola.
It happens. It happens. You have a couple outliers that maybe go outside the realm of being able to be led. But, to your point, I'll say this. The Lions, in one of their characteristics they look for is leadership. Was a player a captain? Did he use his voice? How did he handle adversity? How does a player handle when things don't go their way? Because the NFL is a huge wake-up call. The first second you step out on the field, the speed of the game is remarkably different. They understand that, hey, they're going to get coached hard. Brad Holmes does not have a crew of soft coaches. Broder can attest to this. Kelvin Shepard is not an easy coach to play for. So they are targeting guys that understand that, hey, you got to be a positive influence in that locker room. That, hey, when there's tough times or when there's days when you're not feeling it, how hard do you compete? How do you handle, hey, if you're lower on the depth chart? Because a lot of these guys are going to get drafted are going to start off at 2 or 3 on the depth chart and not be starters. How are they going to handle it mentally? But you said it, Kool-Aid. This Detroit Lions team has the potential with the leaders in the locker room, starting with Alex Anzalone. I think he is a strong linebacker leader that can really command the defense. I think that he's stand-up guy. He's got the ego that you need, and I think he's in command of the linebackers room. You look at the offensive line. Oh, my goodness, Taylor Decker, a gritty individual that can definitely gritty. And you got Jared Goff, I think calm, cool, and steady, that really doesn't let the highs and lows of the NFL, doesn't let Broder's nasty, mean questions affect his mood, and just allows that locker room to kind of keep an even keel, which you need. So you said it. That locker room has a lot of leaders, but maybe they got to upgrade the cornerback leader room because they had a major faux pas this offseason with one of their own. So maybe Carlton Davis, Amik Robertson will step up and take hold of that room because they got some work to do.
Yeah, hey, Terran Arnold and Mike Sanders still are pretty good leaders coming up out of college. But, Doc, let me ask you this last question, then we'll let you go. Because you're talking about asking some intense questions. Sometimes, I don't know if you feel this way, maybe you're a lone wolf asking the tough, the difficult, the direct questions. Brad Holmes talked about that yesterday and laid out a scenario or teased us with a scenario that he and Dan Campbell, the head coach, were actually the lone wolves in the draft room last year, finding a player, selecting a player that everyone else in the room wanted to go a different direction, a different player at that position. So, A, how does it feel to be a lone wolf? And B, who do you think is that player they were referencing?
No, Broder, I appreciate that. Look, there's a lot of good media asking great questions. Some will use a lot more words to try and trick the to giving an answer. But look, these guys that are, these players and coaches, they've been well trained in how to deliver a message in the right way. And look, the job is to try and elicit the best response. My situation's a little different in that, I don't have to craft a quote to get a story. I have the ideas of what I want to write. So for me, my vision has always been in the theory of how to ask a question. And definitely I like at polling the audience in terms of what they're thinking. A lot of the responses I get are silly, but I think that guys like Eduardo are great. They have realistic ideas of what they want to what information they want. But to me, I just ask what I think is in my head. I ask my writers what they're thinking. But to me, it's just what comes in my mind. What do I want to know? And I can deliver it in the manner in which I see fit. Sometimes I know that it's just going to be a question that they're going to punt on, but they know someone's thinking it, and that person's me. And so that is
I love you.
Hey, yeah, that's that. Sometimes you get to them to know that, hey, sometimes life in the NFL is not all rainbows and sunshine. That, hey, you didn't make a play, and somebody sitting in this chair recognized it, and I want to know why. And it's a great opportunity. I'm so lucky that I got to, be in that room, and you guys saw that photo. There was nobody more proud than maybe me and Broder standing on that podium to be in a media photo from where I came from. And but enough about me. In regards to Brad Holmes, look, he's the boss, man. He's the final boss, as some would say. But the buck stops with him. And if there's a player that he loves and feels like, hey, that's the guy for the Detroit Lions, he can be the lone wolf and select a player that he sees fit. But look, it's a collaborative effort. And to me, I would not be a good general manager because I would definitely take the final boss mentality and just say, hey, this is who I want. This is my job on the line. And the head coach, you just follow me. But the Lions are doing something much better. They can handle the collaborative approach. I'm not that way. I'm too controlling. I want my finger on everything. If I'm making $5-6 million a year, I'm not letting some area scout dictate to me who I'm taking. What? Brad Holmes, listen, is way smarter than me and is a way better general manager and collaborator than I ever would be. I would be somebody where the leaks would be, God, that guy's an asshole. I want to get out of here. But I think what Brad Holmes was really saying is people kind of understand what groupthink is, which is, hey, if everybody loves a player, he gets it. He knows what the player's about. But if there's somebody out there that says, wait a minute, I don't like him, his eyes perk up a little bit and says, wait a minute, we all love him. Why don't you like him? And he perks up because that indicates that maybe there's something he missed. And so to the testament and credit of Brad Holmes, he's look, really in the end, he's going to leave no stone unturned. And if somebody is willing to share a scouting opinion that is different than the group, he respects that immensely. And I would too. But guys, let me tell you this. If you want to be in a job where there's 50 million opinions on one player, scouting is the roughest job probably in the NFL. You got to be traveling. You got to give staunch opinions on these players. And if you're wrong, you'll be replaced pretty quickly. But you just look at a review of a guy like Mike Sanderstill. There's so many different opinions from this is a guy that you got to put in your defensive backs room, or you get the opinion of, oh no, if you take this guy, your secondary is going to be in chaos. So it's really, in the end, it's not a complete science because you don't know what a player's commitment level is going to be once he gets to the dance. You kind of have a clue, but once you add millions of dollars and life outside of the NFL, some various psychological factors, you don't know what it's going to be like when a player gets 15 million in the bank and now has to get up at 6 a.m. and grind and watch film. Some are ultra competitive. They'll rise to the occasion no matter what, like an Amon-Ra St. Brown. Others, you've seen it. You've seen a lot of players not meet their potential because they flame out. Maybe they get into things they're not supposed to, or they read their own hype and don't feel like they got to get better. So that scouting and being a general manager in the NFL is not easy. That's why when you got a good one like we do in Brad Holmes, you appreciate it and you say, wow, he can handle all the questions. I asked him about the cornerbacks room, and of course he punted and said, look, kind of a normal group. Similarly, he answered that to the wide receivers room. He gave nothing in regards to any idea as to the players that he's going to target. So masterful job, and it's fun to try and craft questions for Brad Holmes because he's really wise, and it's always fun when you get a great question out of him or Jared Goff. It's rewarding.
That's dope. Doc, as always, man, we appreciate you joining the platform, giving us your time, and bringing that insight. You know what? Really quickly before we get into this next segment, before we let you go, I got to know, the Lions all black uniforms or the Pistons teal, which one is higher on the ish list?
Oh, Kool-Aid, let me ask you this. We were having such a great interview. It was all positive. You gave me the leeway to talk about myself a little bit, which I truly enjoy. But let me just go down this road. The Pistons just had a catastrophe of a shitty season, right?
Yeah.
And look what happened this week. You get Charlie Villanueva dropping bombs on the Pistons. You get Stan Van Gundy dropping bombs on the Pistons. What the fuck is happening with the Pistons? That guys that have no right to be sharing their opinion. I'm sitting there listening to Charlie V talking about not showing up to practice, the group of 6 guys that didn't want to mess with John Kuster. I'm hearing Stan Van
Buffoonery.
Gundy talking about
Yeah,
the
seriously.
disaster that is the Pistons roster. Shut up! I don't want to hear from guys that don't.
Especially
I don't
from them.
want to hear from those two guys.
Yeah, no, real.
Oh,
That's
Why
real.
would you ask
man.
that? Why would you ask that question? The teal uniform.
Fired
The
up
teal
today.
uniform. The teal uniform was god awful, and God, pissed me off, man. Why would you do that?
Love you, Doc.
Why would you do that,
I love
Kool-Aid?
you,
Why would
man.
you do
Look,
that?
Publisher of All Lions, host of the Detroit Sports Podcast. Man, it is the Doc, man. Thank you always for joining the show. It's been a good one, man.
Thank you,
sorry,
Doc.
Thanks, Doc.
I'm sorry.